Study Section 6, Public Administration in the United Kingdom. Introduction. We will now proceed to examine the public administration in different countries for comparative analysis. In this study session, you will be exposed to the conduct and practice of public administration in the United Kingdom, UK. The historical development of the United Kingdom shapes the way and manner its public institutions function will be examined. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Point out the areas in which history has impacted British public administration. 2. Point out the salient features of the public administration system in the United Kingdom. 3. Discuss the operation of regional government in the British system. 4. Discuss the recent developments in the British public historical environment for public administration in UK. British political system is characterized by continuity and change. In many ways, the history of Britain has been marked by the love for the past. As you perhaps know, still standing firm today are political institutions that reflect Britain's political history, such as the British monarchy, the Parliament, etc. With the establishment of a new political order as a result of the revolution, the basis for individual expression was created. With the rising powers of the industrialists and traders, they became a valuable source of income for government since government had no important sources of revenue except loans and taxes derived from their peoples, Palmer, Colton, and Cromwell, albeit. As industrialization deepened, government could generate high income as standards of wealth and income increased. Government expanded its services to meet the needs of its tax-paying populations. Political and economic reforms were undertaken, and this gradually conceded power to the people. Although the need to avoid a large manpower in its colonies was emphasized in order to avoid enormous strain on its resources, the Second World War forced Britain into the most state-planned and state-managed economy ever introduced outside a frankly socialist country, Hobsbawm albeit. Like most governments, the British government undertook measures that provided generous unemployment benefits, universal health schemes, educational assistance, and social aid programs aimed at the disadvantaged. Hughes 2003, Palmer, Colton, and Cromwell 2007, page 884, Hobsbawm 1998, 223-228. Beginning from 1979, the welfare system was radically altered. The British Conservative Party leader, Margaret Thatcher, who became Prime Minister in 1979, led the campaign against the welfare state. The welfare state was attacked as costly, wasteful, paternalistic, and bureaucratic, though her policies were successful as she succeeded in curtailing the powers of the unions, returned over one-third of the nationalized industries to private enterprise, and made credit more available to business and home buyers. However, as economic development slowed down at the close of the 1980s, new fiscal measures were introduced that ultimately led to the fall of the Thatcher government. Indeed, as Tony Blair has recounted in his memoir, A Journey, one of the things he set out to do as soon as he became Prime Minister was to reform the British public services and welfare state to be in consonant with the world of the 21st century. Blair 2010. Upon emerging as Labour Party leader in 1994, Blair suggested the need to remove Clause 4 from the Labour Party constitution. 1. Political culture. The coexistence of continuity and change. Britain is characterized by love for its past, and although changes and modernization are taking place, its traditional institutions are adapting to the changes that are taking place. Britain has been described as having a civic culture. This point was made by Gabriel Almond and Sidney Weber, 1963, in their book, Civic Culture. They argued that Britain was characterized by a civic culture marked by confidence in the governmental system, a liking for strong government, and a general respect for its political class and the policies it pursued. 1. An elitist civil service. 2. Absence of a written constitution. 3. An emasculated parliament. 4. A system of local government dominated by the center. 5. Absence of a codified system of administrative law to protect citizens from the state. 6. Slow and half-hearted acceptance of the Ombudsman principle. See Kingdom 2000, page 17. 2. Constitutional framework. Continuity in British culture is illustrated by its constitutional development. British Constitution is unwritten because its provisions are not codified in a single document. Sources of the British Constitution. These are 5 sources of the British Constitution. 1. A number of ancient powers belonging to the monarch as royal prerogatives. This remains but are inherited by the Prime Minister. 2. Major statutes passed by Parliament and a range of common law decisions passed by judges. 3. A range of conventions which regulate matters of central importance in the working of government, including the operation of the cabinet itself. 4. Authoritative opinion of learned jurists, many of which are landmark judgments from the past to be consulted in times of uncertainty or crisis. 3. Overview of the machinery of government. In the United Kingdom, executive powers are divided between the British Crown and the Prime Minister. In practice, the monarch asks the leader of the party with the majority in the House of Commons to form a government. The leader of the largest party typically nominates a cabinet of senior party legislators. There has historically been the forum in which the Prime Minister brought together leading members of the governing party to ensure agreement about major government policies. Rose 2008. The British Parliament is sometimes regarded as one of the least effective in Europe. This is a result of single-party majority governments and a party system based on conflict between two main parties. Features of the public administration system and reform experience. 1. Civil service. The British civil service is often referred to as Whitehall. It is the central government bureaucracy consisting of functional departments, each headed by a Secretary of State and ministerial team. The evolution of the civil service in the UK has been marked by its historical development. However, the civil service needed to be reformed to meet the needs of commerce and enterprise of the 19th century bourgeoisie. The 1854 Northcote Trevelyan Report was greatly inspired by the Indian Civil Service. Among its recommendations were the following. 1. Departments should be aggregated into a unified home civil service. 2. Officials would be career people, not political appointees. 3. The public service should be organized hierarchically from clerical routine through a range of executive tasks to high-altitude policy making, and recruitment were to reflect these distinctions. 4. Recruitment would be based on merit as indicated by competitive examinations conducted by an independent civil service commission. 5. Examination for the upper echelons would be geared to the syllabus of the few existing universities, Kingdom IBID. With this reform, the public service grew steadily over the years. In 1,900 membership stood at around 50,000, but 2 world wars and the burgeoning welfare state saw it peak at around 751,000 in 1956. The new political climate saw the increase in the casualization of staff, the number rising from 11,100 in 1976 to 19,600 by 1997, while the part-time workforce advanced from 31,100 to 56,100 to compensate for the shrinkage of the permanent staff. 2. Civil servants. The non-industrial service broadly comprises 3 elements: the administrative group, a category of specialist groups containing professionals such as scientists, doctors, and lawyers, and a set of departmental classes employing experts in areas such as taxation. Although the reality is that civil servants in the United Kingdom worked based on their general administrative and managerial skills, and it is based on this that they are addressed. The Fulton Committee on the Civil Service, set up by a former Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, sought to remove the demarcation between the generalist and the specialist in the civil service and to give more attractive promotion to specialists in the civil service during IBID. The 1854 North Code Trevelyan legacy earlier referred to has imbued the civil service with an elitist orientation. This is evident in its recruitment mainly from the public schools and the elite Oxford, Cambridge, Oxbridge universities. Civil servants, politics, and neutrality. The North Code Trevelyan reforms established a convention of political neutrality. In the pursuit of a career in the civil service, civil servants are expected to serve government of all kinds to equal degrees. This issue led to debates between those who felt the civil service would become sympathetic with the forces of establishment. In other words, they would be against change. The Thatcher government followed the Harold Wilson government and also appointed a personal advisors from outside the government system, fearing that public servants might not cooperate in the massive cut of the public service she wished to implement. Four, semi-autonomous government agencies. This was a product of the 1988 Efficiency Report, since an immediate implementation of the report was bound to create infighting within the civil service and was faced with severe opposition. The report did not come into effect immediately. By April 1997, over 100 agencies employed 77% of all permanent public officials, leaving a central core in the main civil service of some 50,000, Kingdom 2,000. They are established in areas where it is deemed necessary that some function should be undertaken with some degree of autonomy from the policy process and operate in various areas of industrial, social, scientific, cultural, economic, and artistic life. They are usually funded from the National Treasury and are run by boards appointed by ministers. Regional and local governments. Great Britain comprises of the nations of Scotland, Wales, and England, while the United Kingdom is comprised of the countries that make up Great Britain and also includes Northern Ireland. These political entities were previously managed without dissatisfaction, although in Northern Ireland separatist sentiments were expressed before the policy of devolution was introduced. 1. Devolution. Devolution is the policy measure that has been instituted to cater for the growing demand for autonomy by the people of the nations mentioned above. By so doing, the central government in London has given some degree of autonomy to the delivery of public services in Scotland, Wales, and North Ireland. The developments in each of these constituent parts of the United Kingdom have been shaped by certain historic developments which would not be mentioned here. These attempts were initially unsuccessful. Upon assuming office in 1997, Blair announced referendums for the creation of regional parliaments in Scotland and Wales. Scotland now has its own parliament with a First Minister, a position that can be described as the Prime Minister of Scotland. The powers devolved to Scotland are considerably more than those devolved to Wales. In Wales, there is no Welsh executive, no right to vary income tax, and fewer functions can be performed locally, leading some to decry the Welsh Senate as no more than a talking shop. House 2006. As part of the Northern Ireland peace process, the Good Friday Agreement of April 1998 and consequent legislation created a new provincial assembly for Northern Ireland based in Belfast with substantial powers to be devolved to a Northern Ireland executive with a cabinet and a first and deputy first minister consequent upon the successful implementation of all aspects of the agreement. 2. Finance and accountability. Public expenditure has grown throughout the 20th century as a result of two world wars and the growth of the welfare state, Kingdom 2000. Principally, the source of revenue in the UK is through taxation, although this is supplemented by borrowing and income from government-owned trading enterprises. Constitutionally, government rights to tax must be approved by Parliament when the Minister of Finance, known in the UK as the Chancellor of Exchequer, presents his spending and taxation proposals to the Commons on Budget Day. Although, since members of the Prime Minister's PM cabinet are frontline members of Parliament, They can capitalize on their membership to engage in debate, defend government bills during lengthy legislative process, and take part in question time. Recent development in UK's public administration. Current reforms in the UK are geared at reducing government deficit through cuts in spending. These cuts have had enormous impact on public administration. The second stream of the reforms has been directed at reforming and enhancing the role of the public sector in public services. Moreover, the current coalition government has placed the introduction of choice and competition at the heart of its program of public service reform. This has extended the work of the previous Labour government. The coalition agreement spoke explicitly of combining thinking on markets, choice and competition with a belief in advancing democracy at a much more local level to generate a radical vision for public services. Study Section 6 Summary. In this study session, you learn that the British public administration has evolved over the years and shaped by specific development. These developments are the Glorious Revolution of 1688 and the Industrial Revolution. Great Britain is characterized by reference of its tradition, but it has also undertaken modernization efforts. Recent reforms have been geared towards reducing government deficit, and such measures have direct consequences for the operation of the civil service as more responsibilities have been contracted out to semi-autonomous non-governmental agencies in a bid to foster transparency and accountability. This is the end of Study Section 6. Thanks for listening.